Okay. Yeah, we're live. I'm just gonna copy the. Just gonna make the announcements everywhere on the internet.
Yeah, you can post it on Reddit as well if you'd like.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Eh, no. And well, there's nobody here really, but
Oh,
oh
are we streaming now?
yeah, we're streaming. There. 3 people on Twitch. Hello. One person on.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Hello, hello,
Good
everyone.
morning. Good morning. Wait, I gotta put you in full screen. How do I put this full screen? Here, full screen. Boom. That's better. Look at that. All right. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining so early. Alex and I, we're gonna talk about our new startup, well, startup company, Easy Suite.
Our new thing.
Our new thing. By the way, I think yeah, you should be good to be yeah. And we're also gonna talk about Phoenix to Ban. So yeah, if you have any questions about Phoenix to Ban, then please send them in the chat. If you have any questions regarding anything else, really, just anything you want to talk about, what our favorite coffee brands are, like favorite car brands, why we,
Yeah, cars. Yeah, we could redirect car questions to me,
right?
coffee brands to you.
Why we both love electric cars and we think they're great.
No, I like my gasoline. As you can see from my
Yeah, the
Chevrolet shirt.
Chevrolet shirt.
Old school American muscle.
Oh, that's a good question. Here's one. Who can solve a Rubik's Cube faster? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I have mine right here.
Ah,
I
you
don't know
do
if
have one. I don't even have one. I just have this black thing which you can like put together
oh, it's more of like it's like a
like a
fidget
fidget
spinner
spinner.
toy
Yeah,
thing.
like this. Look, my
Yeah,
dexterity.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
impressed with my dexterity?
I'm thoroughly
Look, I'm
impressed.
not even looking.
Yeah, I'm pretty intimidated right now.
I don't know the logic of a Rubik's cube, but I can do this very fast. So I
Yeah,
should
I
I
think my
should win.
best time is like a minute and a half, something
Oh,
like that.
that's
I'm
pretty.
not I'm not a speed cuber. I
Oh,
can't do it in like
is that good? 1 minute
20,
and a
30
half.
seconds. I don't know. I think it depends who you ask if that's good enough.
Yeah. What's the world record? It's probably like 5 6 seconds or something.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. It's
Yeah.
absurd.
Yeah. It's
Let's
probably
see.
like 6.5 seconds. I'm saying.
World. Let's see. 3.134
No way. That's
seconds.
so fast.
That's that's crazy.
Wait. I'm gonna try to move you back into the frame. People can't see you. Yeah, you have to stop moving. Just stay still now. Don't move at
Oh,
all.
okay. I'll sit
Only
still.
talk
All
and
right.
look straight into the camera.
Straight.
No blinking.
I'm Greek. I have to move around and
I
talk with
know.
my
Do
hands
you talk with your hands
and
as
shout.
well? I thought only the Italians do, but maybe it's the Mediterranean thing.
It's just a Mediterranean
Ah,
thing.
I
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Is it because you always have food in your hand or coffee? Like,
Yeah, we're always like eating baklava or
yeah.
moussaka or something.
Right.
So
That's Hello from Germany. Hello back to Germany from the Netherlands. To Serpent 213. Where about in Germany? I'm German. I come from Essen. Maybe you know it. Essen by Düsseldorf. No. I'm like Alex, I don't want to confuse you, but I'm also half talking to the chat. Like but feel free to say whatever
I
comes to your
figure.
mind anyway.
I figure. I figure.
Everybody's gonna react to everything, all the influences, everything that's happening. Yeah. Well, 7 people already there. That's cool, right?
I said, you wanna just get into it and then
Yeah,
see who else
sure. I
comes
guess
strolling in?
I guess people want to actually, listen. Ah, from Hannover. Yeah, very close by. Oh, you can also, Alex, you can also see the chat if you go to. Well, you should go to Twitch as well, and then mute the video,
Oh,
and
okay.
and
Interesting.
then and then you can see the chat. It's there here.
Let's
Um,
see.
but yeah, while Alex is setting up Twitch, we are here to talk about our latest endeavor in the never-ending journey to wealth and depression, basically. Whichever comes first, will win. And yeah, we started a new thing called Easy Suite. Easy Suite. It's just gonna be an umbrella app, or not an app, but an umbrella term, like umbrella company for multiple small products we have in mind. And I mean, Alex and I, we've been working. Well, in software, Alex has been working forever. He's one of these dinosaurs that still like that were around when these like uh little you had these
The
little
jQuery
the
days.
jQuery days. Yeah, I mean that's even more like more almost modern history, right? But I mean, I'm talking about the punch cards. Well, now probably you were you were in band.
No,
No, I know my father. He worked with punch cards back in the day. Yeah, and then he would rent the servers. Well, the servers. They didn't call them servers. They just called them computing machines. And he would rent them during the night because then the company that owned them didn't use them, so he could do his research on them and just had these big chunks of punch cards, and then you had to feed them into it. And yeah, eventually you hope that you get a good result out. So those were the days where the real engineers were working still.
before the days of print debugging.
Yeah, I guess, all right. I mean, nowadays it's just like IO inspect and you get it, and everything is super fast. But yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Easy Suite. It's gonna be our umbrella project term, company name, whatever, for multiple small products. And the first one of it is Phoenix the Ban. And maybe some of you have seen the video that we posted yesterday. And maybe some of you even have looked at easysuite.dev and also looked at Phoenix the Ban. We also made the docs public, just like OpenPro. Yeah, I don't know, Alex. Phoenix the Ban is kind of your brainchild. Like, what made you come up with that idea?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so having run a few SaaS products, some more successful than others, and some no traffic at all. Uh, after your product gets a little bit of traction and you start showing up in search results and stuff like that, inevitably you're going to get hammered by bots coming through there trying to find if you're running WordPress or Drupal or any Django admin pages or stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, eventually these things will just send thousands and thousands of requests, just trying to fuzz out and figure out what you have exposed and what you don't. So yeah, the idea behind Phoenix to Ban was to kind of create a fail to ban alternative, but built right into your Elixir app. Because maybe I abuse the beam more than most, but I like to use the Erlang virtual machine kind of as like my operating system as opposed to just like the dumb application layer.
Hmm.
So if I can pull something into my Elixir layer, I will do that as opposed to running a whole bunch of system D services. Just because then you have unit test coverage on things that you're running inside of your app versus not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to create something where you could just easily add a couple lines to your supervision tree, your mix file, and boom, you've got essentially a web application firewall within a couple lines of code.
Yeah.
And then all that traffic gets filtered out. Your logs, your metrics, all those things get cleaned up. All those bots are not wasting CPU time going through your entire router and your entire endpoint file. Yeah, just try to mitigate all that nonsense as best you can.
Yeah,
That was kind of the idea with Phoenix to ban.
that makes sense. Do you think that the bots will also kind of learn not to pester you anymore after they get banned?
Maybe I have no empirical evidence there,
Yeah.
but I have noticed. So I'm running Phoenix to ban in my SaaS application, and when I first deployed Phoenix to ban, I was getting spikes of thousands and thousands of crap requests. But as of like this week and last week, it's down to like a few little spikes here and there, but nothing what it
Hmm.
was.
Yeah, maybe.
So maybe maybe they're smart bots and they're like, oh, okay, this guy's definitely not running WordPress
Yeah, yeah. We
because
don't want we
I
don't want
keep
to mess
getting.
with him, right? He blocks us.
Yeah, he means business.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I also have it running now in indie courses, and it's also
Mhm.
just fun to see when the attacks happen. And I think same with you. They
Yeah,
happen at like 3 4 a.m. For your local time, and the same happened with me, which is no, actually it wasn't 3 4. It was 3 4 a.m. your time. Although I'm in Europe, so they probably just assumed like I'm an American person or like the companies run in America. But yeah, it's also
yeah.
interesting that exactly at that time where everybody's asleep, that's when the bots come out.
So my suspicion there again, no empirical evidence. This is 100% just shooting from the hip here,
Yeah,
from my gut.
good.
So in Phoenix to ban, we have the live dashboard plugin, so you can see what IP addresses get banned. I actually looked up that IP address in
Hmm.
one of those like geolocation services, so you could
Oh,
see where it was from.
right,
And surprisingly, it was I think it was in China or Russia or something.
right.
But my guess is they probably perform these attacks in the middle of the night on the opposite end of the world
Yeah,
because they're like, okay, I can get away with it because the ops team is sleeping or something.
yeah, and it's also their work time, right?
Exactly.
So
So
that's
yeah,
probably what happened here. Just somebody is coming to the workspace at like 9 in the morning, and they press a button, and the bots run, and you see what you
exactly,
can do with
exactly.
it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, also
Oh,
one of the things that I like about it is, I mean, we've seen that a lot now with different libraries being pulled into the Elixir space. Like we have the error tracker library that basically tries to replace Sentry, or app
mhm,
signal, and that's pretty cool because eventually it's free to run it. If it's just running inside the application, it's a free open source library. And then yeah, you also got the Phoenix Analytics, I think it's called, the library, which is kind of plausible. But then also again run inside your application, your Phoenix application.
mhm,
And I like that. I like that move, I think, because what I liked about Phoenix Saban is, I mean, right now it is like the one feature we build as an MVP is the spot protection, and it runs
mhm,
only on routes that you don't have in your router, because those are usually the ones that the bots try to access, like the WordPress login page or the Drupal login page, or like PHP, certain PHP files that are very common. But I mean, like on this like filtering whether a bot tries to access a route that does not exist. I mean, that's only our first step with Phoenix ban, right? And what I like
mhm,
about the exciting new features, which we can also talk about, is that they really integrate with Elixir and with Phoenix, and that allow us to actually tailor our solution to Phoenix. Instead of like these. I mean, there are already many softwares out there that do this web application firewall stuff, but they can't, go into Phoenix and actually hook into your live view and perform some actions, right? Because they're not written in Elixir. So like
yeah, yeah,
that's why I like that we also build it inside Phoenix, inside Elixir.
yeah. We've had a few questions from people asking like, hey, how does this differ from something that I could deploy, to my Kubernetes cluster, and that's my ingress, and then that filters out traffic. And yeah, I mean, just like you said, we have the advantage of being inside of the application, so we can hook into things that maybe something that's running on your network doesn't have access to.
Hmm.
We can validate that people aren't messing with your Phoenix live view values, because we can validate that data. I mean, these are just things that you can't do at the network layer. You
Yeah.
have to do at the application layer. So, like everything in engineering, it's trade-offs, right? Like, okay, if you're running some C++ binary that does filtering, it's probably going to be faster than
Yeah.
Phoenix to ban. But then again, now you have to like either apt install it and configure it, or you got to deploy it as an ingress in Kubernetes. And there's a whole bunch of work involved with deploying that
Hmm.
versus like 3 lines of Elixir code
Yeah.
and then mix deps.get.
That's true. I also want to ask, like in the chat, does anybody have questions about Phoenix the Ban? Did you check it out? Did you like it? And was everything clear to you, or was it kind of difficult for you to understand it? Yeah. And sorry, I'm just getting a lot of like my OBS is complaining a little. Um, yeah, but Alex, I mean, you already mentioned a couple of features that we tried to build. Like, can you, because you already built a POC for that proof of concept? Like, can you talk about the live view value verification?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, just to give everyone the context there. So in live view, you could add attributes to your tags. So phx dash value dash and then whatever the key is. And then anytime an event happens, you'll get that in your handle event along with the attributes that you wanted there. The problem there is that all gets stored in the HTML. So if you do like inspect source and you change the Phoenix value, when you click that button or whatever, the server is going to get that you know tampered with
Yeah.
value. So if somebody, let's say maybe you're a little forgetful on the back end and you forget to validate that, hey, this person can actually delete this record, your authorization bit, not your authentication bit. So if you forget to do that kind of stuff, and you have some malicious actor on the front end changing values, now you're acting upon data that you didn't necessarily intend the user to have access to.
Hmm.
So yeah, there is a POC that I put together, I think like a year or two ago,
Hmm.
on how to validate incoming data on the back end. So to make sure that whatever the front end sent was what you intended it to send, and it's not something that was manually injected by a malicious actor.
Yeah.
So I
Just
think
just
we're going
to
to take that from.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just want to make that a bit clearer, like the problem here, because like I also made already 2 or 3 videos, I believe, about the how to attack live view. There's also one about it on my channel on YouTube. And yeah, basically what you do is, if you have a button to delete a record, like that button would have a Phoenix value with the ID of that record. And then in your live view, you would get a handle event, right, with that ID. And then you would usually just take that ID of the record and delete it from your database. But what you got to watch out, and also update. Not only update, update, delete, and even create. Although you don't have IDs in that, but still, you would need to always check that the ID you're receiving in the event handler is actually the ID that you put into the template, because somebody can just can do the man in the middle and just use the WebSocket connection that they have in the browser and send these events to your backend without actually. And they can even literally change the HTML in the browser, change the ID to another ID, and click the button, and that would do the same trick. So that way they can just enter an ID of a record they know that exists, but that they don't have access to, and they click the button and the record is gone, because you're not checking on the backend that actually the ID you're receiving belongs to the record that you're expecting, right? So I think,
To be clear, like in your context function, you should add that
yeah,
that logic in there to
yes,
make sure that whoever's like whatever IDs are getting passed in, does this person have access to it based on like the calling context and stuff like that. So we're not saying if you use this, you don't have to do that kind of authorization.
yeah,
You definitely should still do it, but just in case, this is just another layer of security. Where now you could also profile traffic. You could say, okay, somebody's tampering with my data on the front end.
hmm,
Most people are not going to press F12 and start changing stuff. Like your daily users are not going to be doing that.
yeah,
So you can start figuring out, okay, someone's trying to actively attack my site, and you
yeah.
can profile and figure out and deal with it accordingly.
Okay, so like the POC that you built a year ago, so how did it work technically in high level terms?
Yeah, so they're in cryptography. There's something called HMAX,
Hmm.
and that's essentially a way to sign a piece of data. And then if that data ever changes, you're going to get a different HMAC key. So then you know, okay, this data does not line up with this HMAC key. I know that it must have been tampered with. There's no longer data integrity there. So the way that POC worked back a year ago was every time you did um, or you had a Phoenix value, you had to call a function. It would take whatever you passed in. It would append some sort of an HMAC key at the end of it, and then in your handle event, you would say, okay, when I'm handling this event and taking in this data, ensure that number one, it has an HMAC key, because you could also do the same thing. You could delete the HMAC key in the Phoenix value, and then your backend would say, oh, okay, this value looks fine. I
Hmm.
don't have an HMAC key to compare. So you say, hey, this should have an HMAC key. Please validate it. So it checks to see if an HMAC key exists. And if it does exist, then take the data and then pass it through the Erlang crypto function for generating HMAX, given your secret key, and then do
Hmm.
the signatures line up? If so, this is valid data,
Hmm.
and the user can proceed. Else, you have a malicious actor.
Yeah, yeah,
That
that's
was the high level. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. And again, because we built Phoenix to Ban as an Elixir application, we're able to hook into your live view hooks basically, maybe, or at least give you a very easy to use helper function. Like we haven't defined the API yet, but eventually,
Yeah, that's still in the works.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it will allow us to give you the tools to do this very quickly yourself as well. And ideally, we would do it for you because that's what Easy Suite is all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got one question, sorry, already a little while ago. Is it a good fit to protect a public registration form from bots? It's a long form, so I considered making a minimum fill out time a condition. Or use Ash policies, but that's related to the Ash framework. So, is it a good fit to protect the public registration form from bots?
Yes, I would say so. Because one of the features that we're working on right now is the public IP ban lists, and maybe you want to talk about that because I think you're going to be working on that
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, well, the idea
Not
here
to
is
steal your thunder.
it's all right. So the idea here is that there are public IP lists out there that list malicious, like IPs that have shown malicious activity. And well, these IP lists, they're just publicly available. And our idea with Phoenix to Ban is that we would pull these lists every like 30 minutes. And then whenever you get a request in, we compare the request IP against these lists of malicious IPs. And if we see, well, the IP that made the request is actually malicious according to that list, we would ban it. And then, they could not make any further requests to your application. And these requests, they might then also include to your entire application. Because right now we only focus on the routes that are not defined by you. So we, don't want to block any legitimate traffic to your existing routes. But then in the future, we also want to extend this umbrella of protection over your entire application. So that is the idea here. So if you have a public registration form, and then there would be bots that already are on a public block list, they would be blocked by Phoenix to Ban as well. Yeah.
Then I mean, you could also, so we provide in Phoenix Sabana behavior, so you could also define your own like application specific rules. You're not just limited to the rules that we generate. So we actually what's it called, dog fooding,
Yeah,
when you
dog
use your
fooding.
own API type of thing. Yeah, so we made the behavior as part of the library, and we adhere to that same behavior when we give you guys rules to use out of the box that you could use as well.
Yeah.
So if there's some kind of behavior that not like Elixir behavior, like actual behavior, if
Yeah.
there's some kind of behavior that you see happening on your app that you can profile that traffic as malicious, then yeah, you can write a rule for it to ban those
Yeah.
IP addresses.
And again, also what Alex has mentioned earlier with the verification of parameters, that might be also an extension. Maybe we could actually add Um, Not sure. Maybe there are ways to detect the bots then. But again, like if you really want to go into bot protection, like to like that looks like legitimate traffic, because like we also don't want to block too much, but there might be traffic that comes in that looks legitimate, but it might be bot related. And our good friend Michael, actually, he has a whole company basically built around that problem, and the company is called Perexial. And like Michael rather works with businesses and enterprises, but I think he also now has a free library that people can use. I believe there was something. But yeah, he's the person to talk to if you really want to go into the nitty-gritty details of how can I protect my application best against especially legitimately looking traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have had this issue in my apps. I found the best thing that I did, it was a really easy one. I just I updated the change set to increase like the number of minimum characters for certain fields. Um, and that was enough to stop 95% of the bots.
Wait,
Because
how
they'll
did that
usually
work?
go in.
How does that work?
Like on the Eagle MMS contact us form,
Yeah,
I think it's like it tells your problem type of thing. Like
right.
why even reaching out to us type of input. And all the bots would put in like 5, 6 characters of just garbage.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I just increased the minimum character limit there to 12 or 15, and
All
that
right.
was enough to stop 95% of the bots from
Oh,
filling out the
really?
form.
That's so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one idea. And the other thing, also, what you can use is a reCAPTCHA security check. So something like reCAPTCHA from Google. You can also use,
oh, please don't use recapture from Google.
yeah,
I hate
don't
it so bad.
don't use reCAPTCHA from Google. What I
If I
had,
have to if I have to find one more bicycle, I'm gonna lose it.
yeah. But how many bridges are in these pictures, Alex? Find all the
I,
bridges.
I don't know if I'm getting older or these are just getting harder.
Yeah. But what I hate actually is if you have the one image and it's kind of like chunked into quadrants, and you have to select all the quadrants that show like a motorcycle, and then you have like a tiny little hook that is just in the other
Oh,
quadrant.
it's
Yeah,
just on the
it's
edge.
like, is it now part or not? And then you press it, and of course it's wrong. So you have to do the whole thing again. And I mean, I had like 5 rounds of those damn pictures, just to like submit a
Yeah,
damn form.
yeah. But I mean, to turn this around to a serious note, like a lot of these commercial tools are just overly aggressive and really intrusive into your apps. Like with Cloudflare, a lot of times you'll get that like redirect screen where you'll just sit there spinning,
Yeah,
and for a user, that's not a very good experience. Seeing like they go to your website and the first thing they see is 3 seconds of loading because Cloudflare
yeah.
is trying to profile you, or you're trying to submit a form and that stupid reCAPTCHA pops up, and somebody just can't fill out the pictures, and like screw you, I'm not even going to inquire about your service because I can't
Yeah,
fill out the damn
I don't care.
thing. So I mean, on a serious note, it is a balance of trying to find something that can protect your app, from the majority of cases,
Mhm.
and then not hindering usage. There's that famous graph where it's like security goes up, usability goes down
Yeah,
as an inverse relationship.
there's a
And
sweet
it's
spot.
true. I mean, the more you sit there and you lock down stuff, the less usable it is. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and we also got a from Sririam. Sorry if I pronounce that name wrong. He says, sorry, this person says, I use Hammer to protect login forms and compare against blacklists or blocklists, the public ones. That's a smart use too, like to use Hammer, the rate limiting library, and then to
Mhm.
compare it against the public blocklists. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Like use a well, I mean the blocklist we have on the roadmap, but how do you feel about rate limiting? That kind of idea.
Um, I don't think we're gonna pull rate limiting into Phoenix to ban. I mean, because
Yeah,
things like Hammer exist. Like there, I don't necessarily feel the need to recreate the wheel. Like Hammer does a good job.
yeah.
Uh,
I
then I think it's written by is it Michael Muscala, or
well could be. Yeah,
I don't remember. I mean, Hammer is one of the old Elixir libraries from
yeah.
you know 2015s, 2016s.
EX Hammer.
Okay, it wasn't Michael
No.
Muscala.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, yeah. I mean, if you need rate limiting, I would just use Hammer. I don't suspect we'll be pulling that functionality into Phoenix to ban.
Yeah.
I think Phoenix to ban is going to be very much focused on like bot protection, malicious IP protection, more application firewall stuff as opposed to rate limiting.
Yeah. True. I mean, if we would go into rate limiting eventually, I have this one idea which I think nobody really supports, which is the WebSocket message rate limiting, basically. Because I mean, like the HTTP request rate limiting, that is something that you can do with Hammer, and that is pretty simple to do as well. But then when it comes to the WebSocket connection, because you might actually literally have like a public website, like your landing page, and it might be a live view. So that means that you establish a WebSocket connection to whoever goes to your website. And if they have a malicious intent, they could go into the WebSocket and just blast you with random messages.
Yeah.
And even if they would figure out like a working message, they could just send the valid message over and over and over again just to mess with your memory usage. And if they have a couple of processors doing that at the same time, they might actually kind of DDoS you in that regard, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the problem that literally nobody has solved. That even if you go through Cloudflare or other protectors like that, like they don't tap into your WebSocket connections, right? So that might be something.
Yeah, we could. That's a feature that we should definitely add.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix to Hammer. So hammer it, hammer time. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, Serpent also says Serpent prefers self-hosted solutions, and I agree with that. I also think like the more I can pull into my own like application, and if it's not too much a hassle to maintain, then I'm more than happy to do that actually.
Yeah. Then I mean, it also works nicely with hosting solutions where you don't necessarily have access to the host itself. So if you're running on Fly,
Yeah.
you don't have access to their load balancers. You can't really do much aside from exposing a port, and then it takes care of the rest. Which on the one hand makes it very easy to deploy, but on the other hand, if you want to have some sort of a security proxy or a filter layer, you don't necessarily have that option unless you're also deploying that container, and now you need to have them all talk together, and then you've wasted a few hours trying to get all that running.
Yeah.
Versus Phoenix to ban, 3 lines of code and you're up and running, and you have more or less the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you're still running everything in Elixir, so okay, you could say you're it's not gonna be as fast as the C or C++ implementation of a firewall. Okay, fair. But you've also saved yourself hours of tedious labor.
Yeah, exactly. And the maintenance that comes with it and everything. And yeah. And
yeah, exactly.
And we built Phoenix to ban also in such a way that it actually almost doesn't affect your traffic a lot. Almost like it. I don't think it will be noticeable too much.
It's negligible because the way, and I could dive into the architecture here. So the way it works is, so we have that plug that you put into your endpoint file, but what that will do is it'll see if the incoming request is on the block list, and that check is just one ets call. It just says, hey, does this key exist in the block ets table? So that's O of 1. I mean, it does in Elixir land, it doesn't get any faster than just to look up in ets if the key exists.
Yeah, true.
So that's all that happens. That's the only overhead that's added when the request comes in. The actual analysis of the incoming request happens asynchronously. So it's not as if the request comes in, we analyze it and see if it's valid, and then it proceeds. That would kill performance, which is, you don't want to do that. So the request comes in, you check if it exists in the block list in X. If it doesn't, cast the data to the analysis portion of the supervision tree, and then just carry on. And then in the analysis portion of the supervision tree, we have a partition supervisor, and there's a whole bunch of workers there that are analyzing all your traffic and making sure what's valid, what's invalid, and stuff like that, and then updating the ets table.
Yeah. So but doing it asynchronously,
yeah, minimal overhead.
Exactly. Yeah, and also, I mean, the actual work you have to do in the async process is also you barely notice it in your application, right? It's not that we spin up like millions of processes that do very heavy
No, no, no.
lifting. No.
Yeah, yeah, it's very minimal. Like all the rules that we have right now are like I went through all the Phoenix or the fail to ban regex rules
Mhm.
and kind of converted those into ones that I found relevant for Phoenix to ban. So it's just doing a bunch of regex to see is the request path invalid path based on WordPress rules and Drupal rules and Python rules and Windows rules.
Yeah. Yeah, so how would one, is it possible to extend these rules if you want to write your own rules maybe?
Yeah, yeah. So we have that. I think it's Phoenix to ban rule is the module,
Hmm.
but yeah, that one defines the behavior, and then I think it's two or three functions that you have to implement for that behavior,
Yeah.
and then that's it. And then include it in your configuration as an additional rule, and boom, now you have your own traffic analysis rule.
Yeah.
And we don't. So in that behavior, we don't pass the entire plug con because there's actually a lot of data in plug con.
Mhm.
So we actually take a subset of that data so that we're not blowing a bunch of memory, passing back and forth copies of the entire struct.
Yeah.
So you can use the subset of data that we have. We have a struct for that. I can't remember the name of it,
Mhm.
but the nice thing is, since this is a premium paid library, if you email us and say, "Hey, we also want this field in the struct," we will most likely include it. But I went through the entire construct and found what I would suspect is the most useful stuff in there for analyzing traffic.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a great idea for adding a rule that you think we should just have and you don't want to implement yourself, also just send us an email. Let us know, and we're more than happy. I mean, this is really just the MVP version 1.0. It will protect you, it won't protect the entire application, it won't protect you in every edge case, but we're working on that. So, it will actually happen pretty fast, like in the next couple of weeks, maybe 1 or 2 months before Christmas, certainly. That is going to be our timeline for the missing feature, so to say, for the big ones. Yeah. Thank you
yeah,
for
it'll be a
joining.
Merry Christmas
Yeah,
for security.
it's gonna be exactly, it's gonna be Christmas. Yeah, because I mean, security is one of these things where people, like, everybody says it's important, but nobody really wants to spend time and money on it. And
Yeah,
I think that was our approach as well, right? I mean, we just said, well, let's just build this thing for ourselves, and then we just add it to our dependencies. We add like 3 fields, and that's it. And then we don't have to think about it anymore. That was, I think, the approach here.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's solved all my problems that I had, where like my logs and metrics were all just getting demolished with junk traffic. Because I use Promex in my business, and
Yeah.
yeah, I have the Phoenix dashboard, and it gives you the what's it called, like I can't remember the name of it. There's a field in there that tells you like the health of the app based on how many 400s and 500s and 200s you're sending out,
Hmm.
and those metrics would always be skewed, come the morning,
Yeah.
because overnight I got like 10,000 404s for people looking for every single possible WordPress extension.
Yeah. True.
So like it cleaned up my logs, it cleaned up my metrics. Now I'm not wasting as much CPU time on those junk requests. All my problems are solved by this, which I think is one of the best products, right? You scratch your own itch and then
Yeah.
you release it into the into the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Mr. Coder, Person Coder. Thanks for dropping by. Sorry that you had to go. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Another question to the chat. Like, do you have any other questions for us? Did we answer all your questions? What do you think about Phoenix the Band? Like, are you willing to buy it, to add it to your application? And honestly, we also, more than interested in hearing your opinion about paid libraries in general, about the, like, because it's a paid library for now. And I mean, Alex has already created so many libraries. I think one of Alex's libraries will be almost on every single application that is ever built, I believe. Like, he has so many out there. So that was also one of the reasons why we said for this one, we're gonna make it paid, because we really want to take the time to make it good and to make it safe for you. And we can only do that like if we get a little bit of money out of it, right? Because we all have like limited time, and the question is, how do you like allocate that limited time, especially if you have
You,
lots of kids
you
like
gotta
Alex
buy
does.
you gotta buy some of your time back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but I mean, we really decided to like not make it a subscription, not even a very high, what we think, one-time payment. I mean, right now it's at $99. That might go up to 149 once we have all the features in place. Um, yeah, thanks. Somebody says the model seems fair. And again, like we also don't limit you to the amount of projects or how long you can use it. You can use it in as many projects as you want. You can have it in commercial products, so for your business, for your enterprise, but you can also have it in your hobby projects. And doesn't matter. Like if you have an issue with your hobby project, just Henderson help you. But of course, if you're an enterprise customer and you would like to have a bit more support, maybe shoot us a message and we can talk about it. I think Alex has a couple of minutes to spare every day. No worries. Right? Yeah. Yeah, so let us know what you think about the pricing model, and also like about the price, right? Maybe you think the price is too high. Maybe it should be higher. Maybe it should be lower. Maybe what do you think? What would be a price you were willing to pay for it? Yeah. And while we wait for the messages for the answers to trickle in, I think that's the one thing we forgot to mention in terms of the roadmap, which is the like kind of what fail to ban does, right? What we like with the 400 analysis.
Oh yeah, yeah. So like how failed to ban even works.
Yeah, basically.
We probably should have started with that.
Maybe we
But
called it a fail to ban and an alternative, but it's not really, is it? Not
yeah, yeah.
yet.
So failed to ban. I don't know what failed to ban is written in. I think it's in
It's
Python,
in Python. Yeah.
but it's a Python, right? Okay. So yeah, failed to ban is something that you install in your Linux box, and you essentially tell where to look in your like var logs directory for like your Apache logs or your Nginx logs or your Postgres logs, like whatever. You just tell it what logs to look at, and it'll look at them. And then failed ban also has a whole bunch of regex rules, so it's scanning your logs to find certain signatures, and based on those signatures, we'll say, okay, time to ban this IP address because it's attempted to log into Postgres, for example, or Nginx, or do something malicious X number of times.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, we got a lot of inspiration from fail to ban and Phoenix to ban, right? So fail to ban also works in that asynchronous fashion. It's not as if it's sitting there as a middleware, analyzing every bit of traffic before it allows it to pass through. It's working in the background, and then I think it updates like UFW or whatever on Linux when it finds rules that
Mm-hmm.
that fit the various signatures.
Interesting, but you really need to set up a lot to use it, right? I mean, first of all, you need to have a log file on your server. That is not something
Yeah,
that runs out of the box with Phoenix. Like you don't have a file, a logging file at least, right?
yeah. Then you would also have to write your own fail to ban rules to catch the various regex. But
Right.
like regex, now you're working in kind of like a non-deterministic space, right?
Mm.
What if I ever so slightly change the output of my logs? What if Nginx has a deployment or a new release version and they've slightly tweaked
Yeah.
the logs? I mean, again, unlikely because I think people that work on Nginx know that these kinds of tools exist, and they don't tinker with the signatures of things. But still, that is a possibility, right?
Hmm.
Versus if it's in the application layer and we're hooking into telemetry events or we're working with structs, that's all well structured data. We're now out of the realm of non-deterministic behavior, and we know for a fact, right? This is the exact field. This is the exact response status code. There's no guesswork. There's no regex when it
True.
comes to finding things. It's just I look it up. I look up that field in that struct, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
interesting. I'm just thinking like how would you even set that up if you would deploy to Fly, for example? Because you deploy a Docker file, you don't even have access to the actual server. Um, you might be able
yeah, I
to
mean,
create that log file inside the Docker container that you run, but then
so I think what you'd have to like if you were dead set on running fail to ban in Fly, um, I think you would probably have to deploy like an Nginx box or an Nginx container that's running Nginx and fail to ban,
right.
and then proxy to your
Oh wow.
your Phoenix app.
Yeah. And that's
So
everything that I mean Fly does that already for you, the proxying. They have their own proxy. So
Yeah, so it's not as if you can hook into their again, maybe this offering exists from Fly, I don't know. I'm just
yeah,
saying, based on what I know about Fly, I would suspect you'd have to deploy an entirely different container
yeah.
and then proxy, which at that point, like, let's say that service is written in the fastest language. Like, let's say that's handcrafted assembly code, and it's the fastest firewall known to man. You still need to make a network hop now, and so all performance has just been thrown out the window.
So you can just as well write it in Python, like fail to ban.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Oh
yeah,
man.
like as soon as you have to proxy, now you're dealing with network, and
Yeah.
it's like you've added overhead now. So it
Ah,
doesn't matter
true.
what language it's written in.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, and that's a common like argument that I saw in a couple of messages. We especially got on Reddit. Reddit was very interested in our
Yeah.
solution, so to say. But like a lot of these messages were kind of like, well, why don't you just deploy this thing? And I'm like, well, in order to do that, I need to have my own proxy in place, which I don't. Like I use Fly. I have their proxy. Even if I would deploy something like DigitalOcean or even AWS, I mean, then you still need to set up that architecture. Or like with the only reason that you want to set up something like fail to ban or whatever else is out there. So that is such an overhead. Like nobody would do that, right? I don't think so.
Yeah. And like you could,
Yeah,
but it's gonna take you hours versus this is like minutes. Like I like once the hardest part of getting all this out to production was creating our private hex repo and stuff like that. But
yeah,
once that was done, like I literally just added two lines of whatever to my my ex file,
yeah.
and then one line to mix exs,
Hmm.
and then added one thing to my supervision tree. So 3 lines of code, and it's done.
Yeah,
And it solved all my issues. So
yeah. And you can even change platform. Like you can go from Fly to DigitalOcean or Hetzner, and you don't need to change anything. It's running inside your application.
yeah,
You should change the underlying operating system of your Docker container. Don't worry about it. All that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, um,
I think I think for the trade-offs that I was concerned about, it solved my issues. So
yeah, yeah. I think like this is our MVP. Like we both are very happy with it. Actually, it solved our use case already. So but we will continue working on it actually. But are there any other questions for the for Phoenix the band, Easy Suite? I mean, also about me or Alex. Like, if you want to ask anything personal, we're here to
yeah,
answer. Yeah, and don't forget also that we have our docs for Phoenix the band. They are public, so if you go to easysuite.dev, um, you can just go to the doc header in the navigation bar, and you can read. You can see all the modules that we have. You can't see the code, obviously, but you can see the modules. You can see the module documentation. You can kind of see, how it's set up. And obviously, if you buy it, you can download the whole source code and look at it as long as you want. Until your eyes bleed, I guess. Nah, they won't bleed. They will be in awe. They will be like,
yeah. I
this is
think
the this is the most beautiful code I've ever seen. That's what everybody's gonna say.
there's some elixir gems in there. I think.
I think so too. Yeah. Do you want to tease on some? I think that's at least one that you could tease on.
The hyper log.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So in computer science, there's a class of like data structures called probabilistic data structures, and they essentially make the trade-off of being 100% accurate and precise to it's close enough, but now you no longer need to store all the data, right? You're storing hashes of data, parts of data, and so you get 98% accuracy, 99% accuracy, and now you saved gigabytes of disk storage.
Hmm.
So for our live dashboard plugin, we actually have one of those probabilistic data structures running, collecting metrics in the background, and it's called hyperlog. And what it does is it's a fast cardinality counter. So if you throw an IP address at hyperlog, it will know, okay, I've already tallied this IP address. I no longer need to tally it. So if you get 10,000 requests, maybe hyperlog shows you like 9,998 because again, it's based on hashes. It's not 100% accurate. But yes, we use that data structure in order to give you those nice line graphs in live dashboards. You know how many unique IP addresses access your server, in 1 hour buckets for 24 hours, and that's a
Mhm.
rolling window too. So we have a ring buffer running in Phoenix to ban with 24 buckets, and they just keep getting cycled out. So you'll have data for running
Mhm.
24 hours, and whichever hour you're currently on, so the head of the ring buffer, that one is a hyperlog um, data structure, and it's getting incremented as requests come in. And then after that bucket switches hour, we tabulate the number of requests, and now the new head of the ring buffer is another hyperlog
Yeah,
log
it's empty then again.
instance. I
Yeah.
just like saying hyperlog log.
Hyperlog log. Do you know where it's called hyperlog log? What's the reason behind it? Just funny name.
I have no idea about the
No,
history of that name.
hyperlog log. Also, why 2 times log? You could just say hyperlog. No, maybe that's the
Maybe
difference.
there was a hyperlog, and somebody
Ah,
was like, "It's like C++. It's like
right.
I'm gonna do one better. Instead of hyperlog, it'll be hyperlog log."
Yeah.
But I think there's also like a hyperlog log plus implementation too.
Mhm.
Let me see. Let me look on Wikipedia.
Hyperlog log. Have you
I thought there was also
question to the
yeah.
chat? Has anybody ever worked with probabilistic data structures? Because I wasn't aware that those existed until I saw Alex's code. I think Bloom filter is another one. Maybe that's something people heard about, right? A Bloom filter.
Yeah, so it's actually the first implementation of Phoenix to ban. It actually used the cuckoo filter, which
Cuckoo.
is like Bloom filters came out first, if I
Okay.
recall correctly, the computer science history. I think Bloom filters came out first, and then like cuckoo filters are a slight variation on Bloom filters. I don't remember the exact differences. I think cuckoo filters you can merge. So like if you have two separate cuckoo filters, you can merge them, and then you have one like one aggregate cuckoo filter as opposed to not. And then I think also from cuckoo filters you can remove elements from the set,
Right.
as opposed to Bloom filters you can't remove items from the set. But
Right.
yeah, cuckoo filters, Bloom filters, that is essentially a probabilistic data structure version of like map set, right? So like in a map set, you throw items in the map set, and then you can make the call to what contains, I think it is, or member. I can't remember the
Hmm.
function, but you could check to see, hey, does this exist in my set? So Bloom filters and cuckoo filters work the same way. They can't tell you exactly what's in the set. Like I can't tell it, hey, is the number one in this set, but it can tell me for a fact, does this exist in the set or not?
Mm.
So I can't get a list of all the output back from the Bloom filter or cuckoo filter,
Right.
but I can make a check to say, does this exist or not? And then I think you can get false positives, but you can't get false negatives. So as long as you check, does this not exist in here, you will 100% guarantee that it doesn't exist in there. Versus the other way around,
Right.
uh,
If you would
you
say
might get a false positive.
if you would ask, does this exist in the hyperlog log? You might get a false positive. Like it might tell you
No,
yes.
in the Bloom filter.
Oh, in the Bloom filter. The Bloom filter might tell
Yeah,
you
Bloom
yes,
filter.
it exists, but actually it doesn't exist. But as long as you
Yeah.
ask, does it not exist, then this is 100% accurate.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those. I can't remember which way. I always look it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well. But
You do this once, and then it's like a bash script. I always forget the
yeah.
syntax. But
Well, it is a class in uni, right? So, or in college.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, there's a whole there's books written on probabilistic data structures, and they're generally useful in scenarios where you don't necessarily care about all the data
Hmm.
being like accessible, but what you care more about is the summary of the data. Maybe you can tolerate some inaccuracy.
Yeah. True. Yeah. I learned a lot, and maybe we will also write a blog post about that because I found that quite interesting, to be honest. The
Yeah,
hyperlog
yeah,
log.
yeah. Probabilistic data structures are fun.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I didn't know about them. Yeah. All right. Before we wrap it up, are there any more questions? Anybody in the chat? Do you have any questions about like Phoenix to ban, Easy Suite? Alex and I, how we met, why we actually stick together. What's the secret to our marriage? Is it maybe that I have a picture of him in my office now? Look, now you have two Alexes. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I used it for the video, for the announcement video. And if enough
That
people,
was
I promise
that
here
was
now,
hilarious.
yeah, if enough people buy Phoenix the Band, I will print this picture on like a real life size cutout, I think it's called. I'm gonna put it in the corner there.
Yeah, the cardboard
The
cutouts.
cardboard cutout, yeah. And yeah, Alex is actually also my boss, so to say. So he will be looking over my shoulder all day then. All right. Yeah, I don't think there are any more questions here. So
Cool.
yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. If you want to learn more, go to easysweet.dev. I'm also gonna write it in the chat one last time so that you know how to write it. And check that out. We have all our documentation there. We also got an email. Otherwise, you can reach us on Blue Sky. I'm available on Blue Sky. Alex is still on Twitter, on the old X. You can't let go of
Yeah.
the X somehow. You gotta move on at one point, Alex.
Whatever. As long as you're just like I just post technical stuff there. I
Yeah.
only consume technical stuff there. I've created all the filters to just
Just technical.
to just echo chamber myself
Yeah.
just at the tech stuff there.
Yeah, I know that feeling actually. I had the same, but I don't know. Now I don't. I'm much more happy on Blue Sky because I did miss these messages that you get from other people that you don't know, that are just like part of your wider network or even not related to it all. And somebody
Mhm.
just shares something really interesting about something you never heard about, right? And you're like, that was worth my time. And I didn't find that
Yeah.
anymore on Twitter, unfortunately. It was only Elixir, Elixir, Elixir. And I love Elixir, but when I go to social media, I kind of want to just, uh, like have some free time, just like have some
Yeah, yeah.
input from different parts. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
on both
Yeah, he's on
for now.
both.
For
He's
now,
on
most
both.
most likely.
Yeah. There's a question actually. I'd like to know Alex's thoughts on the Elixir patterns talk that Jose gave. Did you see that
I
one?
actually haven't watched. I
No.
haven't watched that talk yet. It's
Yeah.
on my list. I have a list of like YouTube videos that I need to watch, but
Yeah.
I don't watch much YouTube.
Nah, actually, I was there. It was in Lisbon. It was a really good talk. But I think the question here stems also from the fact that you wrote the book Elixir Patterns, and then you say gave a talk about Elixir patterns. Well, not quite Elixir patterns. You gave a talk about the big gang of four patterns,
Mhm.
software patterns, but they're not related
Yeah, yeah,
to Elixir patterns, I believe.
yeah. So I'm gonna make some stuff up based on that
Yes,
description you gave me.
that's
So
what we do
I may
here.
put words in Jose's mouth. I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would suspect that a lot of the patterns from Gangs of Four or Gang of Four does not apply like to Elixir, and it's tough to replicate those things because um, like I mean, a lot of times with Gang of Four patterns, you're dealing with mutable data versus we have immutable data in Elixir, given that it's a functional language. So I'd say that a lot of those patterns don't necessarily carry over from Gang of Four, and it might be like you're trying to shoehorn stuff into your Elixir application. But on the other hand, I mean, I think like adapter pattern, I think is in Gang of
Hmm.
Four.
Yeah.
Like you could very easily do that with behaviors, right? Because in Gang of Four they use interfaces. In Elixir we have behaviors which are more or less the same thing.
Hmm.
So like I think there are some patterns that carry over, and then others that necessary or not necessarily. They just don't work in
Okay. Well, I don't.
functional
I don't think you need
languages.
to watch the talk anymore because you kind of just summarized it.
Oh, did I?
More or less, yeah. I mean, you say he looked at some of them, not all of them, but he looked at some of them, and he made the same point as you did. Like he said, well, the OOP Gang of Four patterns were created mostly because people were writing Java and JavaScript, Java and .NET or C Sharp,
Mhm.
and yeah, because you had that issue. Like in OOP, you have the three things, which is behavior, state, and I always forget the third one, identity, something like that. You have it all in one uh, object, in one data place, like in one space in
Mhm.
your memory. So you have an object basically, and the object has a state, so you can change the object state. It has a behavior, so it has functions that can execute stuff and change the state, and it has an identity, so it might have an ID or at least like a in like a post process identifier that we have in Elixir, would be like an ID. So if you change the object, it always has the same ID, but it has different state. right? And these are like the three. If you look at it from like a, like a 3D,
Like XYZ
yeah,
axis.
XYZ. Like you have the behavior, you have the state, and you have the identity. And what you said in the talks basically that in functional programming languages, you split these three things. Like state becomes its own thing, right? Like state is just a map or something you have right now. But as soon as you change it, like it becomes a new thing. That's what you said. You have immutable data structures. So like the ID actually changes. It's not the same anymore as before. Like, okay, if you have an actor struct or something, it might have the same database ID, but the underlying data is not the same between changes. So you have state, but it's also separate from behaviors, which is functions. So functions don't have their own state. They receive state and then they pass on state, but they don't have their own state. And the third one's the ID, which is, the object, like you can't share the same state between two processes, unless you have something like an S table or so, but even then it's still immutable. So basically, like he of course, you see, explains it better than I do now, but he said by splitting these three things, you don't have these issues anymore that people try to solve with OOPs, with the Gang of Four patterns, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of what I try to tackle in the Elixir patterns book that I wrote, which was let's not cover the Gang of Four patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Let's instead talk about patterns of how to construct applications using like the OTP constructs that we have. So like,
Yeah.
how do we use a supervisor? How do we configure it? What types of supervisors do we have available to us in Elixir, like partition, dynamic, regular old school supervisor? Like when do you use these? How do you construct your supervision trees? If you pull in ets and you want to configure it for for read concurrency, how do you do that?
Mm.
How do you configure ets tables to be accessible from all other processes? Dealing with the permission setting on ets table. So like, yeah, those are more the patterns that I talk about in the book that I wrote, versus builder pattern and stuff like that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, actually, I think you should watch Jose's talk, and I should read your book. Because
we'll reconvene.
Yeah, we can reconvene afterwards. Make another live stream, and then we discuss this question in detail.
There you go.
All right. Well, with that said, I think we kind of reached the end of our live stream. Unless there are any more questions, but I already asked you so many times. If you haven't asked a question yet, now is really the last time to ask any questions ever. Otherwise, we will never be available ever again. This is the second. This is the moment.
Forever hold your your peace.
Speak up now or stay silent forever. That's what they say when you get married, right? Do they say that when you get married, Alex? Is that a thing? I only know it from the shows.
I think it's speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay. Did anybody speak up at your wedding?
No.
No, see, good. I don't know. Yeah, well, I guess that is it, because if you haven't spoken up yet, now you have to keep your peace forever, I guess.
Yes.
That's how you say it. But
exactly. Yeah.
Yes, but I would like to thank everybody for joining to the live stream today. And check out easysweet.dev, check out Phoenix the Band, check us out on Blue Sky and Twitter. We also have a newsletter. You can subscribe to that one. We're going to send out, the first, like whenever we add these features, we're going to send out a new newsletter of that. So check us out on all the platforms and get in touch. And with that, I think that's it, Alex. Do you want to say anything? No? Just look into the camera straight.
Bye and thank you.
Bye. Everybody bye. Okay, that's it. Everybody leave now. Goodbye.
Yeah.
See you.
Adieu. Farewell.
Farewell.